Although often criticized by the locals, the Toronto transit system is one of the most extensive transit networks in North America. In fact, Toronto has one of the most vast bus networks, and although the subway system may not be that impressive, it does include streetcars. One interesting part of the subway, however, is Line 3, the Blue Line, also known as the Scarborough RT. This line is unique as it uses different trains from the rest of the subway system, and thus these trains haven't been replaced since they were made, and thus the system is incredibly expired and the trains are falling apart. The reason this line is even more unique is that it's going to be taken down. Here at RMBC, we want to explore this line before it's taken down so that you guys can experience it. Line 2, or the Green Line, also known as the Bloor Line, goes east-west and is the second most used line on the TTC network. This line is important as it's the one that's going to be replacing the Scarborough RT when it's taken down next year, or in 2023. Personally, I've always preferred the Line 2 cars over the Line 1 cars, as there's more red in them, and I feel like it makes them cozier and feel more like an actual TTC subway line because of the important red accents. The Green Line is also an important link between the regions of Etobicoke, part of Scarborough, and, of course, Toronto. Now, the proposed alignment for the Green Line extension to replace the Scarborough RT is in fact on a different alignment. This is able to be done because the Scarborough RT is the least used line on the Toronto Metro, and in fact is a bit overbuilt, especially how many stations there are. A big controversy about this line is that the two last stations, McCowan and Scarborough Centre, are within walking distance from each other, and because of this, you'll see a really interesting phenomenon when I rode. It's really funny that I am now the only person in this car, which I think really illustrates the whole how close McCowan is to Scarborough Centre. Like, there's also no one in the next car. It's fully empty. What? That's the front of the car. Coming back to the eastern terminus of Line 2, Kennedy. It is the third most used station on the Green Line. This is after the two interchanges with the yellow line on this line, which are St. George and, of course, the most used station, Bloor Yonge. It is also important to note that while Union Station is the most used train station in all of Canada, it is not the most used subway station specifically. Keep in mind the Union numbers include GO Train and Via Rail arrivals. Quick lovely look at the Line 2 train before we get home and head up to the Scarborough RT. I will say, this is one really long transfer. You take an escalator up to the bus section first before going up fully to the Scarborough RT area, which is of course elevated for most of its alignment. The first thing I notice is the sound. It's not like that the whole time, and as you can see, this car is fairly full, though it is important to note that the Scarborough RT has a much lower capacity than the other lines. Personally, I quite like the graffiti on the walls on the way in. I thought I should mention, the regional rail, well currently commuter rail, GO Train service does connect to Kennedy, and will continue to connect when the new extension is made. I'll leave you with some nice, really loud scenery as we make our way to McCowan. It's important to note that McCowan will not exist when the new subway extension is made. In fact, the alignment on the new Green Line extension will go a little bit further than Scarborough Centre to provide a little bit of a better spacing between stops.
Line 3 to McCowan.
One other person. Okay, so that was our line 3 experience. I like that they're colored blue. This is the most empty station I've ever seen. I don't know why I'm taking the pedway. It's really funny. I have to take the subway again. Well, okay. That said free transfer on it, if you're wondering. Because, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna go through the no entry area just because I want to show you guys how the way the loop works. Is it goes, loops around, and then comes out the other way, and that's where you get on from. So as I try to explain, albeit terribly, how this loop works, I'm just gonna keep this footage on while actually explaining how the loop works. The way it works is that there isn't a loop at this station. The loop is at Kennedy, and I actually saw it at Kennedy, and I decided not to show you. That's a joke. And here they just continue going on to the yard, McCowan Yard, which is where the trains get serviced. And of course they need their own yard because these trains are different and unlike any other train on the system. When they come here, the trains just have a simple switch mechanism, which is kind of cool to look at. And we'll see it with this train coming in here. It just switches onto the other side. I actually have no idea how this loop works. That's a sound. So interestingly enough about these trains, they are intermediate capacity, and they were actually built by a crown corporation of the government of Ontario that no longer exists. That's part of why it's hard to get new trains or service these trains. They're slightly smaller, and they're automated. Well, semi-automated. They have the capacity to be automated, but because of union things, they do have to have an operator on board, but they're perfectly safe if they don't have one. These rails also can't be serviced by regular subways or streetcars. The reason for this is that Toronto has its own gauge known as Toronto gauge, whereas the Scarborough RT uses standard gauge, which is a standard across North America. Funny story to why Toronto gauge even exists. Essentially, the TTC was worried that the city of Toronto would allow cargo trains to come into the city. Obviously, they would never do that, but in an effort to one-up the city, they made their own gauge different. Now, of course, modern developments are starting to use standard gauge again, such as the Eglinton Crosstown and the Finch West LRT. This also was why the Scarborough RT used it, as it was supposed to be a modern system, a new line. It's so loud, though. It's so excruciatingly loud. Oh, okay, we're at Scarborough Center. It's like a 1 minute walk. No, it's a 9 minute walk. It's a 1 minute. I've been recording for 36 seconds. So strongly recommended on the TTC. Let's go. Me getting full points while riding at Scarborough RT. Elevated means that the buses are down. So we go down to get the buses. Take the 985 at 11:30. The 985. This is cool. In my humble opinion, I think that North York and Scarborough should be connected, but they're not, because the two least used lines are the blue and the purple line, which are the Scarborough and the North York lines. But they would be used more if they were connected. It's a catch-22. They don't improve it because no one uses it, but no one uses it because it's not improved. 18 minutes here, but on Google Maps it says it's at 11:30, so that's weird. I don't know what this means. That's cringe. Well, good thing it's Friday. Google Maps was right. Long boy. I will be quick to add that the line 2 extension of a subway was not the only option. Now you may have noticed that standard gauge is still also used by the Eglinton Crosstown, a new project along Eglinton, as well as the Finch West LRT. So, because newer projects, these light rail projects, are using it, there were plans to potentially convert the right-of-way that already exists into a line that can be serviced by these light rail vehicles. This was ultimately not chosen. In fact, there were many different proposals for the past 20, 30 years as the line started to, get old. In fact, the current proposal is the most expensive one, and there are some criticisms about how it will take substantially longer to make than converting the right-of-way to an LRT, and that for about a decade, a former metro line or subway line, train line, will be serviced by shuttle buses, and how that may not be a great commute for a lot of people. There was also a plan in 2006 to, in fact, extend the Scarborough line and potentially upgrade it to accommodate different types of cars. Still not the ones that, again, the Eglinton Crosstown has been delayed a lot, but this was before all of that. And so, well, not before all of it. Okay, anyways, but what's really interesting is that they didn't even consider extending Line 2 at that time. So, yeah. But the point was that extension would have actually still gone to Shepherd. So, at least Shepherd's finally getting their train. In a long time. Anyways, that finishes my video. Thanks for watching.